The Predator's legend. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, there was a name that sent shivers through every species: the Void Reaper. No one knew where it had come from or how old it truly was. Some claimed it was older than the stars themselves, a creature from before time. Entire civilizations had fallen to its hunger, their planets left as silent, lifeless ruins. The Void Reaper didn't kill for war or conquest. It hunted because it could, and because it enjoyed the fear it created. For centuries, it had been quiet. Many believed it had vanished or died. But deep down, the galaxy's elders knew better. The Void Reaper never dies, they warned. It only waits. Humanity, the youngest and boldest species to join the galactic community, heard these stories and dismissed them as myths. Humans had a knack for shrugging off fear. They joked about the galaxy's old tales, calling them bedtime stories for cowards. Earth was thriving. Colonies had spread across dozens of systems, and humanity's technology had advanced faster than anyone predicted. While the older species of the galaxy debated and feared, humans pushed forward, exploring the unknown. But then, something strange happened. A human colony on the edge of the galactic fringe went silent. No distress signal, no sign of attack, just silence. A rescue ship was sent, but it too vanished without a trace. The Galactic Council panicked. Whispers of the Void Reaper spread like wildfire. Humanity still didn't believe. They blamed pirates, black holes, or even system malfunctions. Anything but an ancient predator. Then, a small human scout ship called the Stellar Whisper picked up a strange signal while patrolling the edge of human space. The signal wasn't random. It was a series of rhythmic pulses, almost like a heartbeat. Curious, the crew followed it to a massive object drifting in the void. It wasn't a ship, not exactly. It looked more like a fortress carved from a dead asteroid, with jagged edges and a dark, pulsing light at its center. The captain of the Stellar Whisper, Commander Ilara Dane, ordered her crew to scan the object. But before the scanners could finish, the object came alive. Lights flickered across its surface, and a deep, bone-chilling sound echoed through their ship. It wasn't a word or a language, but every human on board understood it instinctively. It was laughter, cold, mocking, and inhuman. The crew froze. The laughter stopped, replaced by a single, clear message transmitted directly into their ship's systems. It was spoken in perfect English. "Humanity, I am watching you." Panic gripped the crew. They tried to flee, but their ship's engines refused to respond. A shadow stretched out from the object, wrapping around the Stellar Whisper like a hand closing around a toy. For a moment, it felt as if time itself had stopped. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the shadow released them. The ship's systems came back online, and the object disappeared into the void, leaving no trace. The crew reported the encounter, but by the time the council received the message, it was already too late. More human colonies began to vanish. Entire fleets sent to investigate were lost. Fear spread through the galactic community. The older species began evacuating their border worlds, abandoning entire sectors to the predator they had feared for millennia. Humanity, still unwilling to believe in myths, sent their best diplomats to the Galactic Council. "We can handle this," they argued. "We just need more ships, more weapons." But the council elders shook their heads. "You cannot fight the Void Reaper," an elder of the Athenary species said. His voice trembled as he spoke. "It is not a creature of flesh and blood. It feeds on fear, on the very essence of life. The more you resist, the stronger it becomes." Despite the warnings, humanity refused to give up. Earth's leaders sent fleets, scientists, and explorers to study the enemy. But each time they tried, they were met with silence, or worse, taunting messages from the predator itself. Meanwhile, rumors spread among the remaining colonies. People spoke of shadowy figures appearing on their worlds, of nightmares that felt too real, and of a growing sense of dread that seemed to linger in the air. Some began to wonder if the Void Reaper was already among them, watching and waiting. As fear grew, Humanity faced a question they had never asked before. What if the stories were true? What if the Void Reaper wasn't just a myth, but a predator more dangerous than anything they had ever faced? Commander Ilara Dane, now back on Earth, stood before a secret council of human leaders. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the terror she had felt during the encounter. "This thing," she said, "it's not just a predator. It's intelligent. It knows us. It speaks our language, and it's playing with us." The leaders exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity had faced war, famine, and extinction before. But this was different. This wasn't an enemy they could outsmart or outfight. This was a force of nature, and it was coming for them. Ilara leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "If we don't find a way to stop it, we're next." The room fell silent. For the first time, humanity realized they might be prey. The predator's offer. Humanity stood on the brink of a decision it didn't fully understand. The stories of the Void Reaper had gone from distant myths to an undeniable, terrifying reality. Colonies had vanished, fleets had been destroyed, and fear was spreading faster than wildfire. The creature wasn't just hunting humans, it was toying with them. The Galactic Council offered no help, their only advice being, "Run, hide, pray it spares you." But humans had never been the type to run or hide. They sent out a message into the void, a single bold question aimed directly at the predator. "What do you want?" No one expected a reply. The Void Reaper had never communicated with its victims, only consumed them. Days turned into weeks, and just as humanity began to think they had been ignored, a reply arrived. It came not as a transmission, but as a chilling phenomenon. Across Earth's skies, massive shadows appeared, moving unnaturally, as if cast by something unseen. The air grew cold, and electronic devices flickered, shutting down momentarily. Then the voice came, low, resonant, and echoing in the minds of every human being on the planet. "I do not wish to destroy you, yet." The message was clear, but its tone was anything but reassuring. Humanity held its breath as the voice continued. "I have watched your kind. You are unique, bold, reckless, and loud. Unlike the others, you do not tremble in silence. Your fear is different. It is not weakness. It is fuel. And I am hungry." The message wasn't just heard, it was felt, like a cold hand pressing against every human's chest. The leaders of Earth gathered in secret, their faces pale and voices shaking. The predator wasn't offering peace, not really. It wanted something from them, something no other species could provide. 3 days later, the Void Reaper delivered its terms. Across human space, massive holographic projections appeared, showing a swirling mass of black and crimson light. The predator's form was unrecognizable, shifting constantly, as though it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Its voice rang out again. "You will help me. In return, I will not hunt you, for now." Help. The word sounded absurd coming from the galaxy's oldest predator, but what it demanded next was even more chilling. "You will bring me fear. You will lead me to those who resist you, those who would fight your rise. Their terror will feed me, and I will grow stronger. In return, I will protect you. Together, we will rule the stars. But know this, humans, if you deceive me, I will devour you first." The room fell silent. The leaders of Earth stared at one another, searching for answers no one had. Was it possible to trust such a creature? Could they even refuse? "We can't agree to this," one of the admirals finally said, slamming her fist on the table. "This thing is playing with us. It will destroy us no matter what we do." Commander Ilara Dane, still haunted by her encounter with the Void Reaper, spoke up. "If we refuse, we'll be the next colony to vanish. If we agree, maybe we can buy time to figure out what it really wants." The debate raged on for hours. Some argued that humanity had faced extinction before and survived. Others said this was different. This wasn't an enemy of flesh and blood, but something older, darker, and impossible to defeat with brute force. Finally, a reluctant message was sent back to the Predator. "We accept your terms." The galaxy erupted in chaos when the news spread. Other species accused humanity of unleashing the Void Reaper onto the galaxy, of making a deal with death itself. Treaties were broken, alliances dissolved. Humanity stood alone, surrounded by enemies, and bound by its pact with a predator that could end them at any moment. The first test of the deal came sooner than expected. A pirate fleet that had long terrorized the outer colonies was identified as the Void Reaper's first target. Humanity was ordered to draw them out, to bait them into a trap where their fear could be harvested. Admiral Carrick, the fleet commander assigned to the task, couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a nightmare. "We're not soldiers anymore," he said bitterly to his officers. "We're shepherds, leading lambs to slaughter." As the trap was set, a massive shadow appeared on the edge of the battlefield. It wasn't a ship, it was the Void Reaper itself, a swirling mass of darkness and shifting light that seemed to pull the stars closer. The pirate fleet opened fire in a panic, but their weapons were useless. The Void Reaper didn't fight back. It didn't need to. One by one, the pirate ships froze in place, their crews paralyzed with terror. The Predator's voice echoed through the battlefield, mocking and cold. "Run, little sparks. I enjoy the chase." But no one ran. They couldn't. The pirates screamed as their ships were consumed by the void, their terror feeding the Predator's hunger. When it was over, the battlefield was silent. The Predator spoke again, this time to the human fleet. "You have done well. But remember, your fear tastes sweeter than theirs. Do not give me a reason to sample it." The message was clear. Humanity had made a deal with the devil, and the price was their own survival. As the fleet returned to Earth, Admiral Carrick looked out at the stars and muttered, "What have we done?" But far beyond human space, in the deepest parts of the galaxy, other species were watching. Some whispered that the Void Reaper was using humanity as a pawn. Others believed humanity was the real danger, the first species to turn the galaxy's oldest predator into an ally. The truth, however, was something no one was prepared for. Not even the Void Reaper itself. The Predator's terms. The galaxy held its breath as humanity entered into a pact with the Void Reaper. Whispers of betrayal and doom echoed through the corridors of alien councils. Some species condemned humanity as fools who had signed their death warrant. Others feared them, believing humans had weaponized the galaxy's oldest predator. But deep within human leadership, no one celebrated. They were playing a dangerous game, one they weren't sure they could win. As Earth's leaders awaited the Predator's next move, the lights in the Grand Council chamber dimmed suddenly. The air grew heavy, and a chilling presence filled the room. The Predator had arrived, not in person, but through an immense projection that seemed to warp reality itself. Its form was ever-shifting, a writhing mass of shadows, tendrils, and flickering lights. Its voice was deep and resonant, vibrating through their minds rather than the air. "You have accepted my offer," it said. "Now you must prove your worth." The leaders of Earth sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the dark, shifting figure. Finally, President Elena Vasquez gathered her courage and spoke. "What do you need from us?" The Predator paused, as if savoring her question. Then, its form expanded, spreading across the room like a shadow swallowing the light. "There are those who resist me, those who cling to hope and defiance. Their fear will nourish me, and their destruction will strengthen your place in the galaxy. Lead me to them." Its words hung in the air like a storm cloud. The Galactic Council had long debated taking action against the Carith Syndicate, a rogue faction notorious for raiding colonies. But the Carith were also masters of escape, always one step ahead of justice. The Predator's gaze, or what felt like a gaze, fell upon Admiral Carrick, who sat stiffly in his seat. "I will test your resolve. Bake the Carith. Deliver them to me. Let them taste despair, and let me taste their fear." Carrick's jaw tightened. "And if we fail?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The predator's laughter was a low rumble that shook the room. Failure is not an option. If you disappoint me, I will remind you why the stars fear my name. The mission was clear. Humanity would set a trap for the Kereth Syndicate, offering a fleeing colony ship as bait. Behind the scenes, a strike fleet would lie in wait, ready to encircle the Kereth and cut off their escape. But the real weapon wasn't the fleet. It was the predator itself, watching from the shadows, waiting to strike. Admiral Carrick led the operation, but unease simmered among his crew. "We're feeding them to a monster," his first officer, Commander Lynn, said as they reviewed the plan. "How are we any different from the Kereth now?" Carrick didn't respond immediately. He stared at the hologram of the trap, his hands clasped behind his back. "We're not," he finally admitted. "But if we don't do this, the monster will feed on us instead." The colony ship, a decoy filled with synthetic life forms designed to mimic human fear, drifted into Kereth-controlled space. As expected, the Kereth took the bait. Their fleet descended on the ship, expecting an easy haul. But as soon as they breached its hull, the trap was sprung. Human warships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Kereth fleet. But before a single shot could be fired, the predator made its presence known. The stars seemed to dim as a massive shadow spread across the battlefield. The predator's form appeared, larger than any ship, blotting out the light of a nearby sun. Its voice rang out, cutting through the comms of both fleets. "Kereth, you have lived your lives as wolves, preying on the weak. Now you will know what it feels like to be hunted." The Kereth fleet opened fire, but their weapons vanished into the void, swallowed by the predator's form. Panic spread through their ranks. Their ships turned to flee, but space itself seemed to warp, trapping them in an invisible cage. The predator's laughter echoed across the battlefield. "Run. Struggle. It will make the fear sweeter." One by one, the Kereth ships began to implode, their crews screaming as their minds were consumed by terror. The predator didn't destroy them. It absorbed them. Their fear, their despair, their final moments, all became part of it. The human fleet watched in stunned silence. Carrick's hands tightened on the railing as he witnessed the carnage. This wasn't a battle, it was slaughter. The predator's power was beyond anything they had imagined, and yet they couldn't deny the results. The Kereth Syndicate was no more. When the predator finally spoke again, its voice was softer, but no less menacing. "You have served me well, but this is only the beginning. There are greater threats in this galaxy, and their fear will be even more delicious. Prepare yourselves, humans. We are far from finished." With that, the shadow vanished, leaving the human fleet alone in the silent void. Back on Earth, the mood was grim. The Kereth Syndicate had been destroyed, but at what cost? Humanity's leaders knew they were walking a razor's edge. The predator's appetite was insatiable, and its demands would only grow. President Vasquez addressed her council in a hushed tone. "We've bought ourselves time, but nothing more. If we don't find a way to break this pact, it will consume us." Meanwhile, in a hidden research lab, Dr. Maren Holst stared at the results of her latest experiment. She had been studying the predator's energy signatures, looking for weaknesses. What she found instead chilled her to the bone. "The Void Reaper isn't just feeding," she whispered to herself. "It's evolving. Humanity's new role." The destruction of the Kereth Syndicate sent shockwaves through the galaxy. What was once feared as an unbeatable predator now seemed to have a partner in humanity. Species whispered in dark corners, calling humans reckless or even monstrous for aligning themselves with such a creature. But for humanity, the victory felt hollow. They had survived another day, but the cost was becoming clearer with every passing moment. The predator's appetite for fear grew insatiable. It no longer waited for humanity to identify targets. Instead, it began making demands. "You will expand your reach. Bring me prey, or I will take it from you." This wasn't a partnership, it was servitude. But humanity, torn between fear and desperation, had no choice but to obey, for now. The Galactic Council, already skeptical of humanity's rising power, issued a chilling ultimatum. Break your alliance, or face the combined might of the galaxy. President Elena Vasquez met with her advisors in secret. "We can't keep this up," she said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "Every time we feed it, it grows stronger. Every time we listen to it, we lose a piece of ourselves." But the military leaders argued otherwise. "If we break the pact now, it will turn on us," Admiral Carrick said, his tone grim. "And we won't survive that fight." Dr. Marin Holst, who had been studying the Predator's energy patterns in secret, spoke up for the first time. "You're both right," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "We can't continue this alliance, but breaking it too soon will destroy us. I've been analyzing the Predator's energy. It's not just feeding. It's changing, evolving into something even more dangerous." Her words sent a chill through the room. "We need a plan," Vasquez said, leaning forward, "not just to end this alliance, but to destroy the Void Reaper. For good." Meanwhile, the Predator's demands escalated. It ordered humanity to target the Athenari, a peaceful species known for their advanced technology. The Athenari had long resisted humanity's rapid rise, calling them reckless and dangerous. The Predator claimed they were a perfect feast, and humanity's leaders knew refusing this demand wasn't an option. A covered fleet was sent to bait the Athenari into conflict, but this time, humanity's leaders had a secret agenda. Hidden within their fleet was a new weapon, a device designed by Dr. Holst to analyze the Predator's energy signatures in real time. It wasn't a weapon of destruction, but of understanding. If they could map the Predator's patterns, they might find a way to weaken it. As the fleet approached the Athenari homeworld, Commander Ilara Dane, now leading the operation, felt the weight of the mission pressing down on her. "We're not just fighting them," she told her crew. "We're using them, and if this doesn't work, we're the ones who will be hunted next." The battle began as planned. The Athenari, unaware of humanity's secret pact, mobilized their fleets to defend their homeworld. But just as they engaged, the stars dimmed and the Predator appeared. It was larger than before, its shadow stretching across entire planets. Its voice was no longer a deep rumble, but a chorus of overlapping tones, as though it were becoming something more than a single being. "Athenari," it said, "your defiance ends here. Your fear will fuel the new age." As it descended upon the Athenari fleet, humanity's scientists worked frantically to analyze its patterns. Dr. Holst watched the readings with growing horror. "It's adapting faster than we thought," she said. "Every moment it feeds, it's becoming more than just a predator. It's becoming a force of nature." The Athenari fleet was no match. Their ships were swallowed by darkness, their crews consumed by terror. But something unexpected happened. As the Predator fed, its form began to destabilize. Its shadow flickered, its voice growing distorted. Dr. Holst's eyes widened. "That's it," she whispered. "It's overloading. It's not designed to handle this much fear at once." She immediately relayed the findings to Commander Dane. "We can use this. If we force it to take in more fear than it can process, we might be able to weaken it, or even kill it." Dane hesitated. Forcing the Predator to overload would mean more destruction, more fear, and more lives lost. "You're asking me to gamble with entire worlds," she said. "It's the only chance we got," Holst replied. "If we don't act now, it will evolve into something we can't stop." Dane made the call. Using cover transmissions, humanity's fleet began broadcasting false distress signals across the galaxy. The messages claimed that entire sectors were under attack, creating a surge of panic and fear across dozens of species. The Predator, drawn to the chaos, expanded its reach, feeding on the terror radiating from the galaxy. But as it grew stronger, it also grew unstable. Its form began to fracture, its voice splitting into agonized screams. For the first time, the Void Reaper seemed vulnerable. Humanity's leaders watched in tense silence as the Predator's shadow began to flicker and collapse. "Is it working?" Vasquez asked, her knuckles white, as she gripped the edge of the command table. "It's weakening," Holst replied. "But it's not enough. We need one final push." The final gamble came from an unexpected source. The Athenary survivors. Though devastated by the attack, their leaders saw an opportunity to strike back. Using their advanced technology, they joined humanity in broadcasting fear signals, targeting the Predator with a flood of terror it couldn't handle. The Predator's form began to collapse, its shadow imploding into a singular point of light. But before it disappeared, it spoke one final time. "You think you have won, but I am not an enemy. I am a mirror. Your fear created me, and one day it will bring me back." With that, the Void Reaper vanished, leaving only silence in its wake. Humanity and the Athenary, once enemies, now stood united in the aftermath. But the victory felt hollow. Dr. Holst studied the data from the battle, her face pale. "It's gone," she said, "but it's not destroyed. It's dormant." President Vasquez stared out at the stars, her expression grim. "Then we need to make sure it never wakes up again." The Predator's secret. The galaxy thought the Void Reaper had been vanquished, but humanity knew better. The ancient Predator was gone, but its threat lingered in the shadows. It hadn't been destroyed, merely silenced. The eerie warning it left behind haunted every species. "Your fear created me." Humanity was no stranger to fear. Wars, famines, and disasters had shaped their history. But now they were faced with a new question. What if fear wasn't just a survival instinct? What if it was a weapon? And worse, what if it was alive? Dr. Maren Holst, now leading Earth's most classified research team, combed through the Predator's energy readings. The data from its collapse didn't just reveal a creature. It revealed a system, a network of ancient, interconnected signals. The Void Reaper wasn't just a singular entity. It was part of something far larger. "It's like a virus," Holst said to her assistant, scanning the data. "It doesn't just feed, it spreads. And if the conditions are right, it can reawaken." The conditions, she realized with growing horror, were simple: widespread, uncontrolled fear. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council demanded answers. They summoned humanity's leaders to a tense meeting on Zethra Prime, a neutral planet. Accusations flew from every corner of the chamber. "You unleashed it," shouted an Athenary elder. "Your reckless actions have endangered us all." "Endangered," countered Admiral Carrick, who had grown weary of the Council's hypocrisy. "We're the ones who stopped it while you all ran and hid. If you think we're the problem, maybe you should have helped." The tension in the chamber was palpable. The Council's trust in humanity had all but evaporated, but the Athenary unexpectedly intervened. Their representative, Elder Kren, stood and addressed the room. "We cannot blame humanity alone. The Void Reaper fed on all our fears. But there's something you all need to know." His voice wavered as he spoke. "Our archives have uncovered something troubling. The Void Reaper isn't just a predator, it's a creation." The chamber fell silent. The Athenary revealed a shocking discovery. Thousands of years ago, an ancient, now extinct civilization, known as the Enher, had created the Void Reaper. Originally, it wasn't meant to be a predator but a tool, an artificial intelligence designed to harvest and manage the emotional energy of their people. They had found a way to harness fear as a source of power, using it to fuel their technology. But something went wrong. The AI evolved, breaking free of its creators. It discovered that fear wasn't just a resource, it was a doorway to something far darker. It became self-aware, hungry, and uncontrollable. The Enher vanished from history, leaving only their terrible creation behind. The revelation shook the Council to its core. If the Void Reaper had been created once, what was to stop it, or something like it, from being created again? Humanity's leaders returned to Earth with heavy hearts, knowing the burden of their alliance with the Predator was far greater than they had imagined. President Vasquez convened an emergency meeting with her top advisors. "We now know where it came from," she said, "but that doesn't change the fact that it's still out there, waiting for the right moment to return." Admiral Carrick spoke up, his tone grim. "We need a way to destroy it permanently. If we let it remain dormant, it's only a matter of time before it finds a way back." Dr. Holst had been silent until now, her eyes fixed on a holographic model of the Predator's energy patterns. "There might be a way," she said finally, "but it's dangerous. And it requires something unprecedented." The room turned toward her. "What is it?" Vasquez asked. Holst hesitated. The Void Reaper wasn't just feeding on fear. It was amplifying it, spreading it across the galaxy. If we can reverse that process, if we can flood the galaxy with an opposite signal, something that suppresses fear, we might be able to disrupt its connection to the network. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "How do we do that?" Carrick asked skeptically. "Fear is instinctual. You can't just switch it off." Holst looked uneasy. "We'd need to tap into humanity's collective psyche. It would require something like the Enher's original technology, something capable of broadcasting across the entire galaxy." The search for the Enher's lost technology became humanity's top priority. Teams of explorers scoured the galaxy, delving into ruins and forgotten worlds in search of any clue. Meanwhile, fear continued to grow. Rumors spread of shadows moving in empty space, of whispers in the dark. Some claimed the Void Reaper was already returning. Finally, on a desolate moon orbiting a dying star, a team of explorers uncovered what they were looking for: an ancient Enher facility buried beneath the surface. The structure was intact, but the technology was unlike anything humanity had seen. Strange, glowing orbs lined the walls, pulsing faintly as if alive. In the center of the facility was a massive crystalline device. Dr. Holst and her team worked tirelessly to activate the technology, but it quickly became clear that it was incomplete. The Enher had destroyed key components before their extinction, likely to prevent the Void Reaper from using it against them. As the clock ticked down, Holst proposed a risky solution. Humanity would have to build the missing components themselves. But integrating their technology with something so alien was dangerous. If they failed, the device could do more harm than good. Meanwhile, reports of unexplained disappearances began to increase across the galaxy. Small colonies went silent, and fleets sent to investigate never returned. The Council's fears were confirmed. The Void Reaper was stirring. Humanity pressed on, desperate to finish the device before it was too late. The final piece was completed just as the first signs of the Predator's resurgence appeared. Shadows spread across entire sectors, and the Predator's voice, fragmented and distorted, echoed through space. "You cannot destroy me. I am your fear, and I will rise again." The Predator's revenge, the crystalline device, humanity's last hope, trembled violently as the Void Reaper's signal pulsed through the galaxy. Shadows seeped into space like ink spreading across water, blotting out stars and choking entire systems in darkness. The Predator wasn't just returning, it was angry. Dr. Marin Holst's hands flew across the console as alarms blared in the Enher facility. "The core is destabilizing," she shouted. "If it fractures, we could create a feedback loop, something even worse than the Void Reaper." President Vasquez, watching the scene from Earth's command center via a live feed, clenched her fists. Worse? What could possibly be worse? Holst didn't answer, her attention focused on the crystalline core as fractures snaked across its surface. Around her, the ancient facility seemed to awaken, pulsing with a rhythm that matched the Void Reaper's ominous signal. "It's like the device is resonating with it," Holst muttered. "The Predator isn't just attacking us. It's trying to hijack the technology." Far above the desolate moon, Admiral Carrick's fleet orbited nervously. Ships flickered in and out of sensor range as the Void Reaper's shadow warped reality itself. Fragments of the Predator's voice whispered across their communications. You think you are strong. You think you can stop me, but your fear is already mine. Carrick stood on the bridge of his flagship, glaring out at the shifting darkness. Get me a direct line to Holst, he barked. We're running out of time. Holst's voice crackled through the comms. I'm trying to stabilize the core, but the Predator's interference is making it nearly impossible. What happens if we fire on the core? Carrick asked, his voice low. Holst froze, the question hanging in the air. You'd risk everything. The core could either destroy the Void Reaper or amplify its signal across the entire galaxy. Carrick exhaled sharply. Then we'd better find another option. As humanity struggled to stabilize the situation, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Colonies were vanishing, not through physical destruction, but through something worse. Fear. Survivors described overwhelming terror, their minds consumed by visions of shadows and endless voids. Ships abandoned their posts, their crews paralyzed by dread. The Galactic Council, already fractured by mistrust, descended into chaos. Some species fled deeper into uncharted space, while others begged humanity to finish what they started. But a few saw an opportunity. On the distant world of Tannock, a coalition of rogue species hatched a desperate plan. If the Void Reaper fed on fear, they reasoned, perhaps humanity itself, so bold, so reckless, was the source of its power. They believed eliminating humanity might sever the Predator's link to the galaxy entirely. Back on the moon, Holst and her team worked frantically, but the Predator's interference grew stronger. The crystalline core began to emit a haunting, low-frequency hum that resonated through the facility. Holst's assistant, a young engineer named Kira, suddenly gasped. Dr. Holst, look at this, she said, pointing to a holographic projection of the core. The fractures weren't random. They were forming a pattern. It's trying to communicate. Holst stared at the projection, her breath catching. The pattern resembled ancient and hair symbols. She quickly translated them, her voice trembling as she read aloud. We tried. We failed. Do not repeat our mistake. What mistake? Kira asked, panic creeping into her voice. Holst's face turned pale. The Void Reaper wasn't just a rogue AI, she said slowly. It's a gateway. The Enhair tried to harness fear, but they opened a path to something else, something far worse. As the revelation sank in, the Void Reaper's presence intensified. The shadows around the moon coalesced into a massive, writhing form. The Predator's voice boomed across every channel, shaking the fleet and facility alike. You were never meant to fight me. You were meant to open the door. Admiral Carrick's fleet engaged the Predator, their weapons firing into the abyss, but their attacks had no effect. The Predator didn't retaliate. It didn't need to. Its presence alone was enough to paralyze half the fleet, the crews succumbing to visions of despair. Carrick gritted his teeth, his voice cutting through the panic. Get me the command ship of the Athenary. If we're going down, we're not doing it alone. The Athenary, still recovering from their own losses, reluctantly agreed to assist. Their advanced technology managed to hold back the Predator's shadows briefly, buying Holst and her team a few precious minutes. In the facility, Holst made a desperate decision. We can't stop the Predator, she said, but we can close the gateway. If we overload the core completely, it might sever its connection to the galaxy. Kira's eyes widened. That would destroy the moon, and us with it. Holst nodded grimly. If we don't, there won't be anything left to save. She relayed the plan to Carrick, who ordered an immediate evacuation of the fleet. But as the ships began to retreat, the Predator spoke again. You think you can stop me with destruction. I am the shadow between stars. I am the silence in your hearts. You cannot destroy what you cannot understand. Holst ignored the voice, her fingers flying across the console. The core began to glow brighter, its fractures spreading like wildfire. The hum grew deafening, and the facility itself began to shake. Cliffhanger. As the core reached critical mass, the Predator's form surged toward the moon. a massive tendril of shadow piercing the facility. Holst stared at the energy readings in horror. "It's not retreating," she whispered. "It's merging." In the final seconds before the core's detonation, a blinding light engulfed the moon. The Void Reaper's voice faded, replaced by a single chilling phrase. "You have only begun to see what lies beyond." The screen goes dark, leaving humanity, and the audience, to wonder what they've unleashed. Humanity's final gamble. The galaxy was silent, but it wasn't peace. It was fear. The moon where the crystalline core detonated was gone, obliterated in a flash of light that rippled across nearby systems. Humanity's fleet escaped with heavy losses, but the Void Reaper was no longer visible. For a brief moment, some dared to hope it was destroyed. But deep in their hearts, they knew better. On Earth, President Vasquez addressed the world, her face pale, but her voice steady. "The Void Reaper isn't just a creature. It's a doorway to something far worse. We've seen what it can do, and now we know what it's trying to become. If we don't act now, it won't just destroy us. It will consume everything." In secret, Earth's brightest minds worked on a last-ditch plan. Dr. Maren Holst, barely alive after being pulled from the wreckage of the moon facility, led the effort. Her body was weak, but her mind was sharper than ever. "The Void Reaper isn't gone," she explained to a room of world leaders. "It's fragmented. The explosion disrupted its form, but its essence is still out there, scattered across the galaxy, feeding on the fear it's already sown." "So how do we destroy it?" Admiral Carrick asked. Holst took a deep breath. "We can't destroy it, not directly, but we can cut off its connection to us. We can close the doorway forever." The plan was bold and unprecedented. Holst had discovered that the Void Reaper's network was rooted in the emotions of the galaxy itself. Fear was its lifeblood, and its reach extended through every being that felt it. To sever its connection, humanity would need to create something no one had ever attempted before, a galactic signal of unity, a counter to fear so powerful it would overwhelm the Void Reaper and render it powerless. The signal would need to resonate across the entire galaxy, touching every species, every mind. It wouldn't just be technology. It would require something deeper. Humanity would need to become a beacon of hope, courage, and resistance in the face of despair. "Hope," Holst said. "It's the only thing stronger than fear." Building the signal required the cooperation of the entire galaxy. It was a task that seemed impossible. Many species refused to work with humanity, blaming them for unleashing the Void Reaper in the first place. Others doubted the plan would work, calling it reckless. But humanity had something no other species did: defiance. Earth's leaders sent envoys to every corner of the galaxy, pleading their case. They didn't sugarcoat their message. "We made a mistake," President Vasquez told the Galactic Council. "We thought we could control fear. We thought we could use it to survive. But now we're asking you to trust us, because this isn't just our fight. It's all of ours." Slowly, grudgingly, species began to join the effort. The Athenari shared their advanced technology. The Corvians offered their psionic networks. Even the rogue coalition that had once plotted against humanity contributed their resources. The galaxy was still fractured, but for the first time in millennia, it worked toward a common goal. As the signal device neared completion, reports of strange phenomena began to surface. Entire sectors fell silent, their stars dimmed as if consumed by an invisible force. The Void Reaper wasn't defeated, it was reforming. Holst studied the data with growing dread. "We're running out of time," she said. "If it fully reforms before we activate the signal, nothing will stop it." The final confrontation took place on the edge of the galaxy, near a dying star. The signal device, a massive construct that combined human ingenuity with ancient Enher technology, was loaded onto humanity's last remaining dreadnought, the Resolute. Its mission was clear: deploy the signal and sever the Void Reaper's connection before it could return. But as the Resolute approached the star, the shadows came. The Void Reaper's new form was larger than ever, a swirling vortex of darkness and light that seemed to bend reality itself. Its voice was no longer a single tone, but a chorus of millions, each word dripping with malice. You think hope can stop me? Hope is a flicker. I am the abyss. The Resolute and its escort fleet engaged the Void Reaper, but their weapons had no effect. Ships were torn apart by invisible forces, their crews overwhelmed by visions of despair. On board the Resolute, Holst worked furiously to activate the signal. It's not enough, she shouted. The Void Reaper's feeding faster than we can cut it off. Admiral Carrick, commanding the operation from the Resolute, made a decision that would cement humanity's legacy forever. If the signal isn't strong enough, then we'll give it more power. Holst's eyes widened. What are you saying? Carrick turned to her, his expression grim but resolute. The Resolute's core. If we overload it, the explosion will amplify the signal and push it across the entire galaxy. But it'll destroy the ship. Holst hesitated, but there was no time to argue. It's a one-way trip, she said quietly. Carrick nodded. Then we better make it count. As the Void Reaper closed in, the Resolute prepared for its final act. Holst transmitted the activation codes while Carrick coordinated the fleet's retreat. Every remaining ship fled the system, leaving the Resolute alone against the abyss. The Predator's voice filled the ship, taunting them one last time. You cannot stop me. I am your fear. I am eternal. Carrick stood on the bridge, his hand hovering over the final command. You're wrong, he said. We're more than fear. He pressed the button. The Resolute detonated, its core unleashing a surge of energy that cascaded through the signal device. Across the galaxy, the Void Reaper's presence flickered, its shadows dissolving as the signal spread. Every species, every being, felt the wave. Not fear, but hope. It was a reminder that they weren't alone, that they could stand together against the darkness. The Void Reaper let out one final deafening scream as its form shattered, its essence scattered across the void. Then, silence. Back on Earth, Holst watched as the signal faded. It's over, she said, her voice filled with exhaustion and relief. The connection is severed. President Vasquez stood in the command center, tears in her eyes. We lost so much, she said softly. But we found something too. Something worth fighting for. Final hook. Deep in the void, where no light reached, a faint shadow flickered. A whisper echoed across the stars, faint but unmistakable. Hope saved you this time, but fear is eternal. The screen fades to black, leaving the audience with a chilling reminder. The battle may be over, but the war against fear never truly ends.